When I first met Sarah, it felt like the universe had finally aligned for me. She was everything I'd ever dreamed of. Smart, funny, compassionate, and absolutely beautiful. Our courtship was a whirlwind romance, the kind you see in movies. We'd spend hours talking about everything and nothing, our laughter echoing in late-night diners and quiet parks. We shared the same dreams, a house in the suburbs, a couple of kids, a dog, the whole 9 yards. Life with her felt complete, like I'd found the missing piece of my soul. We got married on a sunny afternoon in June, surrounded by our closest friends and family. I remember looking at her in her white dress, a radiant smile on her face, and thinking I was the luckiest man alive. The first few years of our marriage were blissful. We bought that house we dreamed of, a cozy little place with a big backyard. We traveled, we built our careers, and we supported each other through thick and thin. I thought we had the perfect marriage. I truly believed we were unbreakable. But perfection, I've learned, is often just an illusion. The cracks started to appear so subtly that I barely noticed them at first. It began with her working late more often. Sarah was a lawyer, and her job was demanding, so I didn't think much of it. I'd make dinner, wait for her, and she'd come home exhausted, barely touching her food before heading to bed. The easy, flowing conversations we used to have were replaced by tired monosyllables. I tried to be supportive, thinking it was just a stressful period at her firm. Then came the business trips. They became more frequent, sometimes on short notice. She'd be gone for days, and when she called, the connection always seemed to be bad. The conversations short and distant. I started to feel a gnawing loneliness, a void in our once vibrant home. The laughter was gone. The warmth had faded. I'd try to plan date nights or weekend getaways to rekindle our spark, but she always had an excuse: a looming deadline, an important case, or just plain exhaustion. The real red flag, the one I couldn't ignore, was her phone. It had become an extension of her hand, always with her, always screen down. She'd jump if I came too close while she was texting, and she changed her password, something she'd never done before. A cold dread started to creep into my heart. I hated the person I was becoming. Anxious, constantly looking for signs. Told myself I was being paranoid, that I needed to trust my wife. But my gut was screaming that something was terribly wrong. One night, she came home later than usual, smelling faintly of a cologne that wasn't mine. She said she'd been out for drinks with colleagues to celebrate a win in court. I wanted to believe her, I really did. But the pieces of the puzzle were starting to form a picture I didn't want to see. The late nights, the trips, the secrecy with her phone, the emotional distance. It all pointed to one devastating conclusion. The confrontation was the hardest thing I've ever had to do. I sat her down in our living room, the same room where we'd once planned our future together. My hands were shaking, my voice barely a whisper. I asked her if there was someone else. For a moment she just stared at me, her face a mask of shock. Then the mask crumbled, and the tears began to fall. With those tears came the truth. There was someone else. His name was Mark. He was a senior partner at her firm. It had started as a friendship, she said, an emotional connection she felt was missing from our marriage. It escalated during a business trip a few months back. She swore it was a mistake, that she loved me, that she wanted to fix us. But the words felt hollow, a script she'd rehearsed. The nightmare in the title of this story wasn't just finding out. It was living in the after. The secret was out, but the damage was profound. The days that followed were a blur of pain and confusion. The house felt like a mausoleum, filled with the ghosts of our happy memories. Every photo on the wall, every shared object was a painful reminder of the life I thought we had. We tried counseling. We sat in a sterile office, talking to a stranger about the most intimate and broken parts of our relationship. Sarah cried and apologized, promising to cut off all contact with him. I wanted to forgive her, okay? A part of me, the part that still loved the girl I married, was desperate to believe we could overcome this. But trust, once shattered, is like a broken mirror. You can try to glue the pieces back together, but the cracks will always be there, distorting the reflection. I couldn't look at her without seeing her with him. I couldn't hear her say, "I love you," without a voice in my head screaming, "Liar." The intimacy we once shared was gone, replaced by an awkward, painful distance. I felt like a stranger in my own home, in my own marriage. The final straw came a few weeks later. I was using our shared tablet to look something up when an email notification popped up on the screen. It was from him. Mark. The subject line was "Can't stop thinking about you." My heart stopped. I know I shouldn't have, but I opened it. It was a long, passionate email talking about their time together, about a future they had planned. She hadn't ended it. She had lied to me again. That was the moment I knew it was over. There was no coming back from this. The happy marriage was a lie, and the nightmare was my new reality. The conversation we had that night was quiet, devoid of the tears and drama of the first confession. It was just filled with a heavy, soul-crushing sadness. We both knew there was nothing left to save. Moving out was surreal, packing up a decade of my life into cardboard boxes, each one feeling heavier than the last. I left behind the house we built, the future we planned, and the woman I thought was my everything. The pain was immense, a physical ache in my chest that wouldn't go away. There were days I could barely get out of bed, overwhelmed by grief and betrayal. But slowly, very slowly, the healing began. It started with reconnecting with friends and family, the people who had been pushed to the periphery of my life. It continued with therapy, not couples counseling, but individual therapy for me. I needed to understand my grief, to process the anger, and to learn how to trust again, starting with myself. I learned that her choices weren't a reflection of my worth. Her betrayal was about her own issues, her own unhappiness, not a failure on my part. It took a long time to truly believe that. I started focusing on myself, hitting the gym, picking up old hobbies, finding joy in small things again. The journey has been long and incredibly difficult, and the scars will probably always be there. But they are a reminder of what I survived. My happy marriage turned into a nightmare, that's true. But I walked through that nightmare and came out the other side. I'm not the same person I was, but maybe that's a good thing. I'm stronger, wiser, and more in tune with my own needs and boundaries. I'm building a new life, one that is authentic and mine. The future is uncertain, but for the first time in a long time, it doesn't feel scary. It feels like a clean slate, a new beginning. If you're going through something similar, know that you are not alone, and it is possible to heal and find happiness again. Thank you for listening to my story. If you've been through a similar experience, please share your thoughts in the comments. And if you want to hear more stories about navigating life's challenges, make sure to subscribe to the channel.